She stood there, frozen. The ice cubes slid down her neck, sending shivers down her spine, while the dark, sticky syrup of a large Coca-Cola dripped from her eyelashes onto her cheap polyester apron. The entire restaurant, Manhattan's most exclusive lunch spot, went dead silent. Then, the laughter started. Cruel, hysterical, entitled. The young man in the designer suit pointed a finger at her and sneered. "That's what you get for being slow, sweetheart. Now clean it up." He thought he had just humiliated a nobody. He thought she was just a waitress he could break for sport. He had no idea that the woman wiping soda from her face was wearing a wedding ring worth more than his father's entire company. And he definitely didn't know who was coming to pick her up in 20 minutes. The Sapphire Room wasn't just a restaurant, it was an arena. Located on the 45th floor of one of New York City's sleekest glass needles, it was the kind of place where a salad cost $45 and the water was imported from glaciers that no longer existed. It was a place where people didn't go to eat. They went to be seen, to negotiate mergers, and to remind themselves that they were masters of the universe. For Selina, however, it was just Tuesday. Selina pinned her name tag, reading simply Selina onto her blouse. It was slightly crooked. She adjusted it in the reflection of the stainless steel coffee machine. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you get from a bad night's sleep, but the deep, bone-weary exhaustion of someone trying to prove a point that no one else understood. "Table 4 is yours, Selina," the manager, Mr. Henderson, barked. Henderson was a short man with a Napoleon complex and a toupee that looked like it was trying to escape his head. He snapped his fingers near her face. "And look alive, we have VIPs coming in. Try not to embarrass the establishment today." "Yes, Mr. Henderson," Selina said softly, grabbing her tray. She walked out onto the floor, navigating the sea of white tablecloths and Italian leather chairs. She was 32, with chestnut hair pulled back in a severe, practical bun. She wore no makeup, and her uniform was a size too big, hiding a figure that had once graced the society pages of Tatler and Vogue, though no one here would recognize her. Not like this. That was the point. Selina was 6 months into a self-imposed exile from her real life. To the staff at the Sapphire Room, she was Selina Jenkins, a struggling transfer from Ohio with a vague backstory about a sick aunt and mounting medical bills. To the rest of the world that mattered, she was Selina van der Hoven, wife of Jarek van der Hoven. Jarek was the kind of billionaire who made other billionaires look middle class. He didn't just own tech companies, he owned the infrastructure the internet ran on. He was a ghost, a titan of industry who valued privacy above all else. When they married 2 years ago, the press had been barred from within 5 miles of the venue. But Selina had grown restless in the golden cage. She wanted to remember what it felt like to work, to struggle, to be treated like a human being rather than a checkbook. She wanted to know if she could still survive on her own. So she made a bet with Jarek. 6 months, no access to the accounts, no driver, just me. He hated it, but he loved her, so he agreed. Today was the last day of the bet. In 4 hours, Jarek was picking her up. She just had to survive the lunch rush. The elevator doors chimed, and the air in the room seemed to suck inward. A group of 4 20-somethings strutted in. They were loud, brash, and dripping in new money. Leading the pack was Kyle Sterling. Selina recognized him immediately, not from her time as a waitress, but from her husband's "do not do business with" list. Kyle was the fail son of a real estate mogul, a boy who had never been told no in his 25 years of existence. On his arm was Tiffany Banks, an Instagram model with 5 million followers and a reputation for sending food back just to watch the servers squirm. Trailing them were two hangers-on, Brent and Jessica, who laughed at everything Kyle said as if their allowances depended on it. They didn't wait to be seated. They walked straight to table 4, the best view in the house, ignoring the reserved sign. "We'll sit here," Kyle announced, tossing his sunglasses onto the table. Mr. Henderson scurried over, sweating. "Mr. Sterling, wonderful to see you. Of course, of course. Let me just clear this." He swiped the reserved sign away, bowing low. Selina watched from the wait station, a knot forming in her stomach. She knew this type. She had grown up around them, and she had married a man who could buy and sell them. But right now, she wasn't Mrs. van der Hoeven. She was just the help. She took a deep breath, plastered on her customer service smile, and approached the table. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice steady. "Welcome to the Sapphire Room. Can I start you off with some sparkling water, or perhaps a cocktail?" Kyle didn't look up. He was scrolling on his phone. Tiffany was fixing her lip liner using her knife as a mirror. "Excuse me?" Selina tried again, slightly louder. Kyle stopped scrolling. He slowly tilted his head up, looking at her with eyes that were glazed over with boredom and malice. He looked her up and down, sneering at her loose uniform and unpolished shoes. "Water?" Kyle laughed, a sharp, barking sound. "Do we look like we want water? God, Henderson really scrapes the bottom of the barrel for staff these days. Bring us a bottle of the 98 Dom and make it snappy. I'm thirsty." "And a Diet Coke," Tiffany added, not looking up. "With crushed ice, not cubed. If it's cubed, I'm sending it back." "Actually," Kyle interrupted, a wicked glint entering his eye. "Make that 4 Cokes, full sugar. We need the energy, and bring them in the tall glasses, the heavy ones." "Certainly," Selina said, writing it down. "I'll be right back." As she turned to leave, she heard Brent whisper loudly, "Check out the shoes. Walmart special, definitely." The table erupted in laughter. Selina kept walking, her back straight. 4 hours, she told herself. Just 4 more hours. The kitchen was a madhouse, filled with the clatter of pans and the shouting of chefs, but Selina moved through it with mechanical precision. She loaded the tray. 4 large Cokes, tall glasses. No ice for the gentleman, crushed ice for the lady. She checked the tray. It was heavy. When she returned to the dining room, the atmosphere at table 4 had shifted. They were louder now, drawing annoyed glances from the businessmen at nearby tables. Kyle was loudly recounting a story about bribing a doorman in Ibiza. Selina approached carefully. "Here are your drinks." She placed the first glass down in front of Brent, then Jessica, then Tiffany. Finally, she reached for Kyle's glass. As she leaned in to place the glass on the coaster, Kyle suddenly threw his arm out, gesturing wildly as he finished his story. "So I told him to shove it," Kyle shouted, his hand colliding hard with Selina's arm. The tray tipped. It wasn't a total disaster. Selina had excellent reflexes. She managed to catch the tray before it flipped completely, but the sudden jolt caused a small splash of Coca-Cola to slosh over the rim of the glass and land on the sleeve of Kyle's pristine, white Italian silk suit jacket. A few drops, brown spots on white silk. Time seemed to stop. Kyle looked at his sleeve. He looked at the brown spots. Then he looked at Selina. His face went from surprised to a shade of red that matched the lobster being served at the next table. "You stupid cow!" Kyle screamed, jumping to his feet. His chair scraped violently against the floor. The entire restaurant went silent. Forks hovered halfway to mouths. "I am so sorry, sir," Selina said quickly, reaching for a napkin. "Let me get some club soda. It will take that right out." "Don't touch me!" Kyle swatted her hand away. "This is a $5,000 jacket. You think your club soda is going to fix this? You think you can fix this?" "It was an accident, sir. You hit my arm when you gestured." "I hit your arm!" Kyle laughed, looking around at his friends for validation. "Did you hear that? She's blaming me. I'm the victim here, and the help is blaming me." Tiffany chimed in, her voice shrill. "She was totally clumsy, Kyle. I saw it. She was shaking, probably on drugs or something." "I am not on drugs," Selina said, her voice dropping an octave, the authority of the Vanderhoven name bleeding into her tone unintentionally. "And I would appreciate it if you lowered your voice." Kyle's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to the help talking back. He picked up his glass, the one that was still full of Coca-Cola. "You want me to lower my voice?" Kyle asked softly, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "You want to tell me what to do?" He took a step closer. Selina stood her ground. She didn't flinch. She had stared down board members who wanted to dismantle her husband's legacy. She wasn't afraid of a boy in a suit. "I want you to sit down and let me get the manager," Selina said calmly. "Nah," Kyle said. "I don't think so. I think you need to cool off." Without warning, Kyle jerked his wrist forward. The contents of the heavy glass, 20 ounces of ice-cold, sugary brown liquid, arced through the air. It hit Selina square in the face. The cold was shocking. The liquid blinded her for a second, running into her eyes, stinging. It soaked her hair, ran down her neck, and drenched the front of her white blouse. The ice cubes clattered onto the floor around her feet. She gasped, wiping her eyes, trying to breathe. "Oops," Kyle deadpanned. "My hand slipped, just like yours did." The table exploded in laughter. Tiffany was cackling, filming the entire thing on her phone. "Oh my God, look at her. She looks like a drowned rat." Selina stood there, dripping. She could feel the sticky syrup binding her eyelashes together. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not from fear, but from a cold, white-hot rage she hadn't felt in years. Mr. Henderson came running over, his face pale. "What is happening? Mr. Sterling! Oh my God! Henderson!" Kyle shouted, pointing at Selina. "This incompetent trash threw a drink on me. Look at my jacket. And when I tried to help her, she tripped and spilled it on herself. She's drunk. Get her out of here." Henderson looked at Kyle's jacket. Then he looked at Selina, who was standing tall despite the soda dripping from her nose. "Selina!" Henderson shrieked. "What have you done?" "He threw it on me, Mr. Henderson," Selina said, her voice eerily calm. "He assaulted me." "Liar!" Tiffany shouted, still filming. "We all saw it. You're crazy." Henderson didn't hesitate. "Kyle Sterling's father spent $50,000 a year in this restaurant. Selina Jenkins was a waitress who made $2.15 an hour plus tips. The math was simple." "Selina, you're fired," Henderson hissed. "Get your things. Get out. Now." "You're not going to check the cameras?" Selina asked. She wiped a streak of coke from her cheek. "I don't need to check anything. You've insulted a VIP guest. You're lucky Mr. Sterling doesn't sue you for the dry cleaning. Go, before I call the police for trespassing." Kyle smirked, crossing his arms. "Yeah, Selina. Go back to the trailer park." Selina looked at Kyle. She looked at Henderson. Then she slowly untied her apron. She let it drop to the floor, right onto the puddle of soda and melting ice. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply ran a hand through her wet hair, slicking it back from her face. "You're right, Mr. Henderson," Selina said. "I should go. My ride is almost here anyway." She turned to Kyle. "You ruined your suit for a laugh, Kyle. I hope it was worth it, because it's going to be the most expensive drink you've ever ordered." "Is that a threat?" Kyle laughed, stepping forward aggressively. "What are you going to do? Call your boyfriend to come beat me up?" Does he drive a tow truck? Selina smiled. It was a terrifying smile. Something like that, she whispered. She turned on her heel and walked out of the dining room, the squishing of her soda-soaked shoes the only sound in the silent restaurant. As she pushed through the heavy double doors into the lobby, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a phone. Not the cracked Android she used for her Selina Jenkins persona, but a sleek, black satellite phone that she kept hidden in her locker. She dialed a single number. "Jarek," she said when he answered. "I'm done. Come get me. And bring the lawyers." Selina stood on the curb of 57th Street, the wind biting through her wet blouse. The Coca-Cola had begun to dry, turning into a sticky, uncomfortable shell that pulled at her skin with every movement. Passers-by, tourists in "I Love NY" t-shirts, and businessmen in rush-hour power walks gave her a wide berth. They looked at her with a mix of pity and disgust. To them, she was just another city casualty, a woman who had clearly had a very bad day and probably deserved it. She checked her watch, a cheap plastic Casio she had bought at a drugstore for $12 to complete her disguise. It had been 18 minutes since she made the call. Inside the Sapphire Room, the party was continuing. She could faintly hear the bass of the music that had been turned up, likely to drown out the awkward memory of her humiliation. Kyle Sterling was probably ordering another round of drinks, celebrating his victory over the help. Selina shivered, hugging her arms around herself. She wasn't cold because of the temperature. She was cold because the adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the stark reality of how small she had felt in that moment. For 6 months, she had lived this life. She had seen how invisible people were when they wore an apron. She had seen how quickly kindness evaporated when someone thought you were beneath them. Then, the atmosphere on the street changed. It wasn't a sound, but a lack of it. The constant honking of yellow taxis seemed to die down. The aggressive rhythm of the city faltered. Turning the corner onto 57th Street wasn't a car. It was a formation. First came 2 blacked-out Cadillac Escalades, moving with the synchronized aggression of military tanks. They blocked the 2 center lanes, forcing traffic to a halt. Behind them glided a Rolls-Royce Phantom, painted a midnight blue so deep it looked black. It was a ghost of a car, silent and massive. Trailing the Phantom were 2 more Escalades. The convoy pulled up directly in front of the Sapphire Room's entrance. The doorman, a sturdy man named Frank, who had ignored Selina as she was kicked out, straightened up, his eyes widening. He knew money. He saw Ferraris and Lamborghinis every day. But this was state-level power. This was heads of state energy. The lead Escalade's doors flew open before the wheels had fully stopped. 4 men in bespoke charcoal suits stepped out. They weren't hotel security. They were private military contractors. They had earpieces, hard eyes, and they moved with a fluid lethality that made people on the sidewalk stop and stare. 2 of them secured the perimeter. The other 2 moved to the rear door of the Rolls-Royce. One of the men opened the door. A polished Italian leather Oxford shoe stepped onto the pavement. Then Jarek van der Hoven emerged. He was 42, standing 6'3". He wore a navy 3-piece suit that cost more than most people's cars, tailored to perfection. His hair was silver at the temples, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass. He radiated an aura of absolute control. He didn't look at the building. He didn't look at the doorman. He looked straight at the shivering, sticky woman standing by the trash can. "Selina," he said. The word was soft, but in the silence of the street, it carried like a gunshot. Selina let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her shoulders slumped. "Hey!" Jarek crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He didn't care about the sticky soda. He didn't care about the onlookers filming with their phones. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her against his cashmere coat. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his chest. "I ruined the bet. I didn't make it to the end of the shift." Jarek pulled back, his hands gripping her shoulders gently. His eyes scanned her face, taking in the red puffiness around her eyes, the streaks of brown syrup in her hair, the wet stain on her chest. His expression shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying stillness. It was the look he wore when he acquired a competitor and dismantled them for parts. "Who?" he asked. Just one word. "It doesn't matter, Jarek. Let's just go home. I want a shower." "It matters," Jarek said, his voice dropping to a low rumble. "You are my wife. You are the matriarch of the Van der Hoven legacy. If someone touched you, they didn't just insult a waitress. They declared war on me." He took off his suit jacket, a garment woven from vicuña wool, and draped it over her shoulders. It was warm and smelled of sandalwood and old money. "Silas," Jarek said, not turning his head. The head of his security detail, a massive man with a scar running through his eyebrow, materialized at his elbow. "Sir? Who is the owner of this establishment?" "The Sapphire Room is owned by the Meridian Group. Majority shareholder is a shell company, but the operating license is held by a man named Alaric Pence. He's currently in London." "Get him on the phone," Jarek said calmly. "Buy it." Selina looked up, startled. "Jarek, you don't have to." "Silas, buy the building. Buy the restaurant. Buy the air rights above it. I want the deed in my digital wallet in 5 minutes. Pay double the market rate if you have to. Just get it done." "Yes, sir," Silas said, tapping his earpiece and walking back to the SUV to execute a transaction worth tens of millions of dollars as casually as ordering a pizza. Jarek looked back at Selina. He wiped a smudge of cola from her cheek with his thumb. "We are going to go inside," Jarek said. "Jarek, no. I look like a mess." "You look like a queen who has been wronged," he corrected her. "And we are going to walk in there, and you are going to show them exactly who they messed with. You wanted to know what it felt like to be powerless, Selina. You learned that. Now, I want them to learn what it feels like to be helpless." He offered her his arm. Selina looked at the restaurant doors. She remembered Kyle's laugh. She remembered Henderson's sneer. She remembered the feeling of the ice sliding down her back. She tightened the expensive jacket around her shoulders, took a deep breath, and hooked her arm through her husband's. "Okay," she said. "Let's go get my last tip." The double doors of the Sapphire Room swung open. Usually the hostess would greet guests, but this time 2 of Jarek's security guards entered first, holding the doors open and effectively taking positions that blocked anyone from leaving. Jarek and Selina walked in. The restaurant was still buzzing. The lunch rush was at its peak. Waiters were rushing with trays of sea bass and filet mignon. The clinking of silverware was a constant hum. But as Jarek and Selina walked past the coat check and into the main dining area, the hum began to die. It started at the tables nearest the entrance. Businessmen who recognized Jarek instantly. They stopped chewing. They nudged their colleagues. Is that Van der Hoven?" someone whispered. "What is he doing here? And who is that with him?" They walked slowly. Jarek's stride was measured, commanding. Selina, wrapped in his jacket, walked with her head high, her soda-matted hair pulled back, her face devoid of the apology she had worn for 6 months. Mr. Henderson was near the bar, berating a busboy. He looked up, annoyed that someone had bypassed the hostess stand. He saw the couple approaching. He recognized Selina first. His face went purple. "You!" Henderson marched over, his little hands balling into fists. "I told you to get out, and you bring a boyfriend. I am calling the police right now. You are trespassing." Henderson reached out to grab Selina's arm to physically escort her out. Before his fingers could graze the fabric of the vicuña jacket, a hand the size of a dinner plate clamped onto Henderson's shoulder. Silas had moved so fast he was a blur. He squeezed Henderson's shoulder, not enough to break it, but enough to paralyze the man with shock and pain. "I wouldn't do that," Silas rumbled. "Let go of me," Henderson squeaked. "Do you know who I am? I manage this restaurant." Jarek stopped. He looked down at Henderson like one might look at a bug on a windshield. "You manage this restaurant," Jarek said calmly. Past tense. "Who are you?" Henderson demanded, trying to shake off Silas. "I am Jarek van der Hoven." The name dropped like an anvil. Henderson went pale. The blood drained from his face so fast he looked like he might faint. He knew the name. Everyone knew the name. Jarek van der Hoven owned the bank that held the loan for the restaurant. He owned the media company that reviewed the food. Mr. van der Hoven," Henderson stammered, his voice trembling. I didn't know. We weren't expecting." "Clearly," Jarek said. He gestured to the dining room. "My wife tells me she had a distressing experience here. Something about a drink?" Henderson's eyes bulged. He looked at Selina. The Selina Jenkins from Ohio, the waitress he had just fired, the woman standing there covered in sticky coke. "Wife?" Henderson whispered. "Selina is your wife?" "She is," Jarek said. "And I'm told you fired her for being assaulted by a customer. I thought—" "Mr. Sterling said." Henderson was hyperventilating. "Mr. Sterling," Jarek repeated the name. He scanned the room. It didn't take long to find them. Table 4. Kyle Sterling was still loud. He was currently laughing at something on his phone, oblivious to the silence that had fallen over the rest of the room. Tiffany was touching up her makeup again. Jarek turned to Silas. "Lock the front doors. No one leaves. No one enters. If anyone has a problem with it, give them my card and tell them to sue me." "Understood," Silas said. Jarek guided Selina toward table 4. The sound of their footsteps on the hardwood floor was heavy. As they approached, the bubble around Kyle finally burst. He noticed the quiet. He looked up, annoyed that the ambient noise had dropped. He saw Selina. "Oh, for God's sake," Kyle groaned, rolling his eyes. "You came back? Henderson, I thought I told you to get rid of the trash." Kyle looked at Jarek. He didn't recognize him. To Kyle, a billionaire looked like a rapper or a tech bro in a hoodie. He didn't recognize the old-world, predatory elegance of Jarek van der Hoven. "And who is this?" Kyle sneered, looking at Jarek's suit. "Your dad? Or the sugar daddy paying for your trailer?" Tiffany giggled. "Definitely sugar daddy. Nice suit, Grandpa." Jarek didn't blink. He pulled out a chair for Selina. "Sit down, darling." Selina sat. She looked at Kyle across the table. The dynamic had shifted, even if Kyle was too stupid to realize it yet. Jarek remained standing. He placed his hands on the back of Selina's chair. "Mr. Sterling," Jarek said, "I believe you owe my wife an apology and a dry cleaning bill." Kyle slammed his hand on the table. "I don't owe her jack. She spilled a drink on me." "Do you have any idea who I am? My father is Robert Sterling. He owns Sterling Real Estate. He could buy you and sell you for parts, buddy." Jarek smiled. It was a genuine smile, which made it terrifying. "Robert Sterling," Jarek mused. "Yes, I know Bob. Mid-level developer, heavily leveraged. He recently took out a massive bridge loan to cover his losses on that failed casino project in Atlantic City, didn't he?" Kyle's face faltered. How do you know that?" "Because I hold the note," Jarek said softly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He placed it on the table, face up. "Let's call him, shall we?" Jarek said. "You're bluffing," Kyle stammered, but his confidence was cracking. He looked at the security guard standing by the door. He looked at the terrified expression on Henderson's face in the background. Jarek tapped the screen. He put it on speaker. The phone rang once, twice. "This is Robert," a gruff voice answered. "Bob," Jarek said pleasantly. "It's Jarek Vanderhoven." There was a pause on the other end, a long, heavy pause. Then the voice on the phone changed completely. It went from gruff to terrified and obsequious. "Mr. Vanderhoven, my God, to what do I owe the pleasure? I saw the quarterly reports, and I assure you, the payment is scheduled for next week. We're just moving some assets around. I'm not calling about the money, Bob," Jarek interrupted. "Although, now that you mention it, my analysts have been suggesting we call in the full amount of your loan immediately. Violation of covenant clauses and all that. No, please, Mr. Vanderhoven. That would bankrupt us. We'd lose everything. The firm, the house, the Hamptons estate, everything." "I know," Jarek said, "but right now I'm sitting across from your son, Kyle, at the Sapphire Room." "Kyle?" Robert's voice was confused. Is he in trouble?" "He seems to be under the impression that the sterling name allows him to assault women," Jarek said, his voice hardening. "Specifically, he threw a glass of Coca-Cola on a waitress. For fun." "He what?" Robert sounded horrified. "He did," Jarek continued. "And unfortunately for you, Bob, that waitress happens to be my wife, Selina." Dead silence on the line. Then a sound of pure terror. Your wife?" "My wife," Jarek confirmed. "So here is the situation, Bob. I am currently deciding whether to simply ruin your son's afternoon or to dismantle your entire family's financial existence by the time dessert is served. I'm leaning toward the latter." Kyle was trembling now. His face was white as a sheet. Tiffany had stopped filming. She had slowly lowered her phone and was trying to inch her chair away from Kyle. "Put him on!" Robert screamed through the phone. "Put that idiot on the phone right now!" Jarek slid the phone across the tablecloth toward Kyle. Kyle stared at the device like it was a bomb. "Pick it up," Selina said softly. Kyle reached out with a shaking hand. "Dad?" "You moron!" Robert's voice roared from the tiny speaker, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You just insulted Jarek Vanderhoven. Apologize. Get on your knees and beg him for forgiveness. If he calls that loan, we are on the street. Do you hear me? We are destitute." I didn't know," Kyle whispered, tears forming in his eyes. "I don't care what you knew," Robert screamed. "Fix it, or so help me God, I will cut you out of the will before the sun goes down." Kyle looked up at Jarek. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement had evaporated, leaving behind a scared little boy in a ruined suit. "I'm sorry," Kyle choked out. He looked at Selina. "I'm so sorry. Please, I didn't know." Jarek took the phone back. "Bob, stay by the phone. I'll let you know if you still have a company in 10 minutes. He hung up. Jarek looked at Kyle. "An apology is words, Kyle. Words are cheap. My wife's dignity is expensive." Jarek signaled to a waiter who was frozen nearby, holding a pitcher of ice water. "Bring me 4 large Coca-Colas," Jarek ordered. "Full sugar, tall glasses, and no ice." "Right away, sir," the waiter squeaked. Jarek turned his cold gaze back to Kyle. "You were thirsty, weren't you, Kyle? You and your friends wanted Cokes?" "No," Kyle whispered. "Please." "Oh, I insist," Jarek said. "You are going to drink them, all of them. And if you spill a single drop on your suit, well, then we talk about your father's loan." Selina watched as the waiter returned with the tray. She looked at Kyle, shaking in his chair. "Actually," Selina said, interrupting the moment, Jarek looked at her. Yes, my love. I don't want him to drink them, Selina said. She stood up. She walked around the table until she was standing right next to Kyle. He flinched, pulling away. I want him to know what it feels like, she said. She reached for the first glass of Coke. The silence in the Sapphire Room was absolute. Even the kitchen staff had stopped working and were peering out through the swinging doors to watch. Selina held the glass of Coca-Cola. It was heavy, the glass slick with condensation. She looked down at Kyle Sterling, who was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. He was trembling, trapped between his ego and the terrifying reality that his father's fortune, his entire identity, hung by a thread held by the man standing behind Selina. You poured this on me because you thought I was nobody, Selina said, her voice steady and clear, carrying to the corners of the room. You thought that because I was serving you, I was beneath you. You thought my dignity was worth less than your dry cleaning bill. Kyle didn't speak. He couldn't. He just stared at the dark liquid swirling in the glass. Please, he whispered, a tear leaking out of his eye. Everybody is watching. Yes, Selina said, they are, just like they were watching when you did it to me. But the difference, Kyle, is that you did it for fun. I'm doing it for an education. She tipped the glass. She didn't throw it. That would have been too quick, too merciful. She poured it. A thick, dark stream of soda cascaded onto Kyle's head. It splattered against his expensive haircut, ran down his forehead, and dripped onto the shoulders of his white silk suit. It soaked into the fabric instantly, turning the pristine white into a muddy, sticky brown. Kyle squeezed his eyes shut, shuddering, but he didn't move. He sat there and took it, terrified that if he flinched, his father would lose the company. Selina poured the entire glass. Then she picked up the second one. This is for the busboy you screamed at last week, she said calmly, pouring the second glass over his left shoulder. She picked up the third. This is for every waiter who has ever had to smile while you treated them like garbage. She poured it over his right shoulder. By the time she set the third empty glass down, Kyle Sterling was a ruined mess. He was dripping, sticky, and utterly humiliated. The smell of sugar and caramel filled the air. Selina wiped her hands on a napkin. She felt a weight lift off her chest. Not just the anger from today, but the weight of 6 months of silence. You can go now, Selina said quietly, and take your friends with you. Kyle scrambled out of his chair. He didn't look at Tiffany. He didn't look at Brent or Jessica. He just put his head down and ran toward the exit, his ruined suit squelching with every step. Brent and Jessica, terrified of guilt by association, grabbed their bags and sprinted after him, leaving a trail of panic in their wake. Only Tiffany remained, frozen in her seat, unsure of what to do. Mr. Henderson, who had been watching the scene with his mouth agape, suddenly seemed to remember his position. He saw Kyle flee and realized he had lost his best customer. He turned his panic towards Selina. You barbarian!" Henderson sputtered, his face flushing red. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've driven away Mr. Sterling. You've made a scene in my restaurant." He puffed his chest out, trying to regain some authority. "Mr. Vanderhoven, I don't care who you are. Your wife is fired, and I am banning both of you from this establishment for life. I will call the police and have you charged with assault." Jarek slowly turned his gaze from the door to Henderson. He looked at the little man with a mix of amusement and boredom. "Silas," Jarek said. "Status?" Silas, still standing by the door, tapped his earpiece. "The wire transfer cleared 30 seconds ago, sir. The digital deed has been transferred to VDH Hospitality Group. We have confirmation from the Meridian Group." Jarek nodded. He looked at Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, isn't it?" Jarek asked. "Yes, and I am ordering you to leave." "You can't order me to leave," Jarek said, buttoning his jacket, "because you are trespassing on my property." Henderson blinked. "What?" "I just bought the restaurant," Jarek said, casually, as if he were discussing buying a sandwich. "I bought the building, the brand, the kitchen equipment, and the chairs you are standing next to. I own the Sapphire Room." A collective gasp went through the dining room. The patrons were whispering furiously. That's impossible," Henderson stammered. "You can't just buy a restaurant in 10 minutes." "I can buy anything I want in 10 minutes, Mr. Henderson. That is the difference between you and me." Jarek stepped closer, "which means technically I am now your employer." Henderson's eyes widened. Hope flickered in his greedy face. If Jarek was his boss, maybe he could save this. Maybe he could spin it. "Oh, well, sir," Henderson said, his voice instantly changing to a sycophantic whine. "In that case, allow me to explain. I was only trying to protect the establishment's reputation. I had no idea Selina was... well, Selina. If I had known, I would have treated her like royalty. I am a loyal manager, sir. I can run this place for you. I know the VIPs. I know the menu." Selina laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "You fired me because I was assaulted, Henderson," Selina said. "You didn't ask if I was okay. You didn't check the cameras. You saw a rich boy and a waitress, and you made a calculation." "It was a misunderstanding," Henderson pleaded, looking at Jarek. "Mr. van der Hoven, surely you understand business." "I do understand business," Jarek said coldly. "And bad management is bad for business." Jarek looked at the kitchen doors. "Is there a sous chef back there? A man named Marco?" The kitchen doors swung open. A large, bearded man in a chef's coat stepped out. He looked nervous. I am Marco, sir." Selina smiled at Marco. He was the only one in the kitchen who had ever been kind to her, sneaking her extra bread when she missed her lunch break. "Marco," Jarek said. "How long have you worked here?" 10 years, sir." "Do you know how to run this kitchen?" "Better than anyone, sir." "Good," Jarek said. "You are now the general manager of the Sapphire Room. Your salary is tripled, effective immediately." Marco's jaw dropped. "Sir, and your first duty as manager," Jarek continued, gesturing to Henderson, "is to remove the garbage from the floor." Marco straightened up. He looked at Henderson, the man who had stolen his tips and berated him for years. A wide grin spread across Marco's face. "With pleasure, sir," Marco said. Marco walked over to Henderson. "Hand over your keys, Alaric, and get out." "You can't do this!" Henderson shrieked as Marco grabbed him by the arm. "I have rights. I have a contract." "Sue me," Jarek said, turning his back. As Marco dragged a kicking and screaming Henderson out of the restaurant to the applause of the kitchen staff, Selina felt a hand touch her arm. She turned around. It was Tiffany. Tiffany Banks was still sitting at table 4. She hadn't run with the others. She was staring at Selina with wide, calculating eyes. Tiffany was beautiful in that manufactured way. Perfect fillers, perfect extensions, perfect tan. She had built a career on Instagram by being seen in the right places with the right people. She was the queen of the soft life, preaching about karma and positivity while treating service workers like furniture. She stood up slowly, smoothing down her dress. She forced a bright, dazzling smile, the one she used for her sponsored posts. "Oh my God, Selina!" Tiffany gushed, her voice dripping with fake honey. "That was intense. I just wanted to say, I am so proud of you for standing up to Kyle. He is such a jerk, right? I was literally just about to break up with him." Selina stared at her, The audacity was almost impressive. "You were laughing, Tiffany. You were filming it." No, babe, you misunderstood." Tiffany waved her hand dismissively, her long acrylic nails clicking. "I was filming it for evidence, to help you. I was totally on your side the whole time. I mean, us girls have to stick together, right?" Tiffany took a step closer, her eyes darting toward Jarek. She was clearly trying to pivot. If Kyle was out, and Selena was actually a billionaire's wife, Tiffany wanted to be on the winning team. "And Mr. van der Hoven," Tiffany said, fluttering her eyelashes at Jarek. "It is such an honor. I'm Tiffany Banks. You probably know my handle, Tiff Life. I have 5 million followers." Jarek looked at her with zero interest. "I don't have Instagram." "Oh," Tiffany faltered, but recovered quickly. "Well, your marketing team definitely knows me. Actually, this is so funny. But I have a huge meeting tomorrow with VDH Cosmetics. They want me to be the face of the new Golden Hour summer campaign. It's a 6-figure contract." Tiffany beamed, looking back at Selena. "So, we're basically going to be colleagues. Isn't that wild? I'd love to grab coffee sometime and hear your story. It's so... Cinderella." Selena looked at Tiffany. She remembered the way Tiffany had snapped her fingers for more ice. She remembered Tiffany calling her a drowned rat. "The Golden Hour campaign," Selena repeated slowly. "Yes," Tiffany squealed. "It's going to be huge. My agent said it's a done deal. I just have to sign the papers tomorrow at noon." Selena turned to Jarek. "VDH Cosmetics. That falls under the Consumer Goods Division, doesn't it?" "It does," Jarek said, watching his wife with a small smirk. "The division head reports directly to the board." "And who sits as the chair of the Brand Image Committee for that division?" Selena asked, though she already knew the answer. Jarek's smirk widened. "You do, my dear." Tiffany's smile froze. Her eyes flicked back and forth between them. "Wait, what?" Selena stepped closer to Tiffany. The smell of expensive perfume on Tiffany was overpowering, masking the scent of fear. "I am the chair of the committee, Tiffany," Selena said pleasantly. "I have final approval on all brand ambassadors, especially for the high-end lines like Golden Hour." Tiffany went pale beneath her bronzer. I didn't know, but I'm perfect for the brand. My engagement numbers are insane. You wouldn't let a little spilled soda get in the way of business, right?" "It's just business." "You're right," Selena said. "It is business, and the VDH brand is about elegance, kindness, and class." Selena looked Tiffany up and down, her eyes landing on the handbag Tiffany was clutching. It was a bright red Hermes Birkin bag. To the untrained eye, it was a symbol of ultimate wealth, worth roughly $20,000. But Selena had grown up in this world. She knew the stitching. She knew the hardware. "Is that a Birkin?" Selena asked. Tiffany clutched the bag tighter, looking relieved to change the subject. "Yes, it's vintage. Kyle bought it for me in Paris." Selena leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that was audible to the nearby tables. "It's a fake, Tiffany." Tiffany gasped. "Excuse me? How dare you? This is real leather." "The stitching on the handle is uneven," Selena pointed out, pointing a finger. "And the gold hardware is the wrong shade for a vintage model. It's a super fake from Shenzhen. Good quality, but definitely counterfeit." The women at the nearby table, socialites who lived for this kind of drama, started giggling. "That's a lie," Tiffany shrieked, her composure cracking. "And," Selena continued, her voice hardening, "VDH Cosmetics cannot have a brand ambassador who carries counterfeit goods. It suggests a lack of authenticity. We value truth, Tiffany." Selena pulled out her own phone, the cheap Android she used for work. She opened the email app. I'm sending an email to the marketing director right now, Selina said, typing with her thumb. Subject: Tiffany Banks. Body: character concerns. Cancel the contract immediately. Do not reschedule. She hit send. Sent, Selina said, looking up. You can skip the meeting tomorrow, Tiffany. Sleep in. Tiffany stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The six-figure contract was gone. Her credibility was shot. She could already feel the eyes of the other diners burning into her fake bag. In the world of high society influencers, being outed for wearing fakes was a death sentence. You bitch, Tiffany screamed, losing all pretense of elegance. You ruined everything. You were just a waitress. You served me fries. I did, Selina said calmly. And if you had said thank you, you'd be a rich woman tomorrow. But you didn't. Selina turned to Silas. I think this guest is leaving now. Silas stepped forward, crossing his massive arms. Miss, the exit. Tiffany looked at Silas, then at the laughing patrons, then at Selina. She let out a frustrated scream, grabbed her fake Birkin, and stormed out of the restaurant, her high heels clacking angrily against the floor. The restaurant erupted into applause, not polite golf claps, but real, raucous applause. The diners, the waiters, the busboys, they were all cheering for Selina. Selina felt a hand on her waist. Jarek kissed her temple. That, Jarek whispered, was incredibly sexy. Selina smiled, but she was tired. The adrenaline was fading, and she was still sticky. I want to go home, Jarek, she said. I want a hot bath, and I want to never see a Coca-Cola again. Done, Jarek said. He guided her toward the door. But before they could leave, a young man stepped into their path. It was the busboy, a teenager named Leon who had been working there for only 2 weeks. He looked terrified but determined. Mom? Leon said, his voice cracking. Selina stopped. Yes, Leon? I wanted to say thank you, Leon said, clutching a dirty rag. Mr. Henderson, he was really mean to us. And those guys, they were awful. Nobody ever stands up for us. Selina looked at the boy. She saw herself in him. She saw the struggle, the exhaustion, and the hope. She looked at Jarek. He nodded slightly, understanding exactly what she was thinking. He pulled a checkbook from his inside pocket. Leon, how old are you? Selina asked. 19, Mum. I'm trying to save up for college. Engineering. Engineering, Jarek said, writing something on the check. Good field. He tore the check out and handed it to Selina. Selina looked at the amount and smiled. It was enough to cover tuition for 4 years, plus living expenses. She handed it to Leon. Study hard, Leon, Selina said. And remember today, when you're the boss one day, and you will be, remember to look at the people serving your coffee. Look them in the eye. Leon looked at the check. His knees buckled. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, Selina said. Just be better than them. With that, Selena van der Hoven walked out of the Sapphire Room, leaving behind a legend that would be told in New York kitchens for decades to come. In the age of smartphones, there is no such thing as a private tantrum. By the time Selina and Jarek's Rolls-Royce merged into traffic, a grainy video recorded by a diner at Table 7 was already viral. The hashtag #YardaKritCokeBoy didn't just trend, it exploded. The consequences for the Sterling dynasty were nuclear. To save his crumbling empire from Jarek's financial wrath, Robert Sterling issued a public statement the next morning. Kyle was stripped of his trust fund and fired from the family firm effective immediately. Justice came in poetic forms. 2 months later, a paparazzo snapped a photo of Kyle in Queens. He wasn't wearing Italian silk. He was shivering in a neon yellow vest, working as a valet at a mid-tier casino. Rumor had it he was terrified of scratching the cars, finally learning the value of $1 the hard way. Tiffany Banks fared no better. The internet is a cruel detective. Sleuths dissected her photos, exposing dozens of counterfeit designer items. VDH Cosmetics publicly dropped her, replacing her with a local school teacher who had saved a strayed dog, a PR masterstroke by Selena. Tiffany deleted her social media and retreated to her parents' basement in New Jersey. Even Henderson, the spineless manager, was crushed under a mountain of legal paperwork. He was last seen managing a drive-through taco stand, strictly rationing hot sauce packets. But the most beautiful change happened at the Sapphire Room. 6 months after the incident, Selena returned. She wasn't wearing a polyester uniform this time. She wore a stunning emerald gown, walking hand in hand with Jarek. The restaurant had transformed. Under Marco's management, the fear was gone, replaced by laughter and efficiency. But tonight, the closed sign was on the door. There were no politicians or influencers on the guest list. The guests were the staff. Dishwashers, line cooks, bussers and servers sat at the prime tables, the white tablecloths set with the finest crystal. They weren't serving. They were being served. Jarek and Selena, along with a team of high-end caterers, poured the wine and brought out the courses. At the end of the meal, Selena stood up. The room fell silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. 6 months ago, I stood here dripping in soda because someone thought I was invisible, Selena said, her voice trembling slightly. But I learned something. The people who feed this city, who clean the floors and park the cars, you aren't invisible. You are essential. She unveiled a large display check. Today, Jarek and I are launching the Apron Fund. It is a non-profit dedicated to providing legal aid and scholarships to service industry workers who have been mistreated. She looked at Leon, the young bus boy she had helped. He was in the front row, wearing a new MIT engineering hoodie, grinning ear to ear. "We are starting with $10 million, Selena announced, and from this day forward, 100% of the profits from the Sapphire Room will go directly into the fund. The room erupted. It wasn't just applause, it was a release of years of being overlooked. Later that night, Selena and Jarek stood on the balcony, watching the New York skyline glitter below. "You know," Jarek teased, wrapping an arm around her, "you were a terrible waitress. You dropped forks constantly." Selena laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. "I know. But I make a pretty good billionaire." She looked down at the street, watching the city move. Kyle threw that drink to make me feel small. He wanted to break me. "And instead?" Jarek asked. Selena smiled, her eyes sharp and bright. "Instead, he woke me up." And that is the incredible story of how one act of cruelty backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Kyle Sterling thought he was splashing soda on a nobody, but he ended up washing away his own future and launching a movement that changed thousands of lives. It's a powerful reminder that you should treat everyone with respect, not because of who they might be, but because of who you should be. Character isn't tested when you're talking to a CEO. It's tested when you're talking to the waiter. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please destroy that like button. Just don't throw a soda on it. And if you want more stories about hidden identities, billionaire revenge, and real-life drama, make sure to hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. I'll see you in the next video.